We can get out of this together.
Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host with another marvelous video. New Mutants are a hand-picked group of mutant superhero teenagers shunned by society and sometimes even their loved ones. They come together under one roof to discover themselves and their true potential. So, without further ado, let's dive into this journey of self-discovery where each mutant pushes their boundaries and along the way, grows up. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
You're not alone. Not anymore. Do you know what mutants are?
Who are the New Mutants? With the dream to create a world where humans and mutants exist in harmony, Professor Charles Francis Xavier, aka Professor X, gathered a group of gifted teenagers with unique superhuman abilities. These mutants, named the X-Men, were to be his first class of students in his school for Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. He aimed to teach these mutants how to control their powers to fit into society and build a world where humans and mutants coexist peacefully. However, a mortal encounter with an alien led Professor X to mistakenly believe that his students could not make it this time. The deaths of his precious gifted youngsters devastated him, and he vowed never to train mutants anymore and put them in danger. However, Dr. Moira McTaggart, a geneticist and a close friend of Professor X, knocked some sense into him and coaxed him that dangers and threats are something no mutants can escape. But at least his school was a safe sanctum where these mutants could grow and identify themselves and their potential. Well, reconsidering his decision, Professor X once again began recruiting and training new mutants to hone their abilities. But this time, he vowed that no mutants would combat and be in harm's way. This gave birth to a new set of students called the New Mutants, who came from different backgrounds, social statuses, and ethnicity. These young mutants had braved various challenges in their lives before being under the same roof of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters and now needed a guiding light. Current members of the New Mutants. Sunspot. Roberto was triggered when he was racially slurred during one of his soccer matches, which flared up his dormant mutant powers. And what could have happened other than a violent outburst on a field, with Roberto confused and dazed? The incident attracted Pierce's attention toward Roberto. He planned to abduct Roberto, but ended up taking his girlfriend Juliana hostage instead. Professor Xavier intervened and sent his newly formed band of new mutants to Roberto's aid. Things took a tragic turn when, during the confrontation, Juliana took the bullet meant for Roberto and died in his arms. Consumed with rage and a hunger for revenge, Roberto helped take down Pierce. Following this, he accepted Xavier's offer to join the New Mutants with the moniker Sunspot because of his ability to absorb solar power and use it for physical strength. He can also transform into a blazing human sun when he absorbs sufficient solar energy.
Stop!
Mirage. After her parents' disappearance, Danny was brought up by her grandfather, Black Eagle. Wary of Danny's mutant powers of conjuring very real-like illusions of people's greatest fears, Black Eagle confided in Professor Xavier to take her in and hone her abilities. But before Professor Xavier could arrive, Black Eagle was murdered by Pierce. Soon, Pierce began hunting Danny for her powers, but was saved by Karma, a member of the New Mutants. Danny eventually joins Professor Xavier's school to seek revenge for his grandfather's death and to respect his last dying wish. Although Danny took up the name Psyche, she later changed it to Mirage, which aptly fit her superpowers. Armor. Not much is known about Hisako Ichiki except that she was a young girl from Japan who aspired to join the X-Men one day. In hopes of meeting her idols, she enrolled at the Xavier Institute and adopted the codename Armor. Here, she trained with the best of the mutants and became an outstanding and intimidating mutant who protected both mutants and humans. Armor had the power to create psionic armor around her own body, which augmented her strength and resistance to damage. Along with the super cool powers up her sleeves, Hisako could even shape her armor according to her will. Magic. Ileana Rasputin was abducted and taken to Limbo by the sorcerer Belasco, who intended to make her his apprentice and use her to open a gateway to summon the Elder God to Earth. During this time, Ileana discovers her mutant powers of teleportation. Drawing from her own soul, Ileana uses her life force to manifest a magical sword called the Soul Sword. Along with her power of teleportation and the Soul Sword, she fought Belasco, shattering all his enchantments, and ultimately overthrew her master to become the Sorceress Supreme and the Queen of Limbo. In the 1983 comic series titled Magic, she was able to return to Earth and join the Xavier's group of young protégés. When she joined the New Mutants, she was no longer a child but a teenager, as time worked very differently in Limbo and aged Ileana. She emerged from Limbo as Magic, who could create a stepping disc, which she used to teleport herself across space and time, dabbled in sorcery and magic, and wielded the Soul Sword. which could cut through any supernatural entity. Wolfsbane. When Rain discovers her mutant powers that she can change into a wolf, she is mistaken as a werewolf by her prejudiced and religious Scottish village. Even her priest father turned on her and led an angry mob who intended to burn her at the stake to get rid of her devil. They hunt her, but Rain is eventually rescued by Dr. Moira McTaggart, who adopts her. She then convinces her friend, Professor Xavier, to take Rain in his school for gifted youngsters, where she's trained to control her lycanthropic abilities. Here, she learns to change into her lycanthropic form at her own will, much like our next-door Dr. Bruce Banner. Here, she adopted the name Wolfsbane. Along with her mutating into a wolf, she had a secondary mutation, which was more precarious. Rain could split her wolf form into multiple wolves in her secondary mutation. Well, that has to be a curveball for her rivals. Magma. Amara Akia was born and raised in the deep Amazonian rainforest in Nova Roma, a colony reportedly ruled by an immortal mutant sorceress, Selene. A dark cult led by a black priestess has been sacrificing young girls left and right in a pit of fire in a cave beneath Nova Roma. To save her daughter from facing the same fate, Senator Akia sent Amara to live outside the jungle disguised as an Indian. After spending years hiding, Amara was captured by the new mutants, whom Selene then captured. Amara was to be sacrificed and thus was thrown into a pit of lava by Selene. Miraculously, the fire manifested Amara's mutant powers instead of burning her. Now, Amara, with her newly found powers and the new mutants, defeated Selene. Amara adopted the codename Magma and joined the new mutants to learn more about the modern world and understand her mutant capabilities better. Magma's mutant ability gave her the power to manipulate fire and earth. She can control the Earth's tectonic plates and cause magma from the ground. With these powers, she can also create earthquakes whenever she wishes to. Chamber. Jono was discovered his mutant ability in a traumatic way, if I try to put it subtly. Jono was enjoying himself in a London nightclub with his girlfriend when his mutant power manifested in the form of psionic energy. It left him with a big hole in his body and his girlfriend crippled. Not only did the blast create a big hole, but it also destroyed his chest, damaging his many organs and leaving him with a mutilated face. While Jono survived the blast, he lost his ability to speak and could only communicate through telepathy, which later became one of his strong faculties. Jono adopted the name Chamber and had a very cynical attitude until Professor Xavier extended his invitation to join his team of mutant trainees. Boom Boom. Boom Boom was born as Tabitha in Virginia, who was somewhat of a loose cannon since childhood with an explosive personality, quite literally. Resentful, she ran away from home. With the ability to create timed explosive energy bombs, she named herself Time Bomb. On her way to Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, she meets the cosmic entity Beyonder, who ultimately takes her to Professor Charles Xavier. However, she was rejected by him. Unable to take the rejection, she was on the verge of suicide when she was saved by Beyonder, who took her to another planet. However, the friendship didn't last long, and Tabitha was once again back on Earth, running with a group of mutant thieves named Fallen Angel. Here, she adopted her most popular codename, Boom Boom. Although despite doing everything a superhero shouldn't, Boom Boom eventually ended up being a part of the New Mutants. Justifying her codename, Boom Boom, she had the ability to create and launch orbs of plasma that could explode with concussive force. Initially an uncontrollable force in the hands of a rebel, Boom Boom later learned to control her time bombs. This makes her no less a ticking time bomb for those who dare to challenge her, pun intended. Cypher, a friend of Kitty Pryde. Doug was nothing extraordinary and was your average next-door geeky kid who was super into computers. However, it was his mutant ability that made him a pro in computers and everything technical. He could translate any language, no matter how outlandish and primitive. Emma Frost, the White Queen of the criminal organization Hellfire Club, learned about Doug being a mutant. She offered him a scholarship to her Massachusetts academy. But Pryde, suspicious of the academy, was kidnapped by the White Queen. The New Mutants had to intervene and save her. And this was how Doug became a part of Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. Doug's power was sought to communicate with an alien, Warlock, who arrived on Earth. Doug successfully communicated with Warlock, and shortly after, they joined Professor Xavier's New Mutants with Doug named as Cypher for his ability to decipher languages. Scout. Initially, Gabrielle Kinney, Gabby was the clone of the mutant Laura Kinney, who was the clone of Wolverine. Since she was Laura's clone, she had two retractive bone claws, one in each arm, which extended out from her knuckles, just like Wolverine. Although the scars on her face remained, she had regenerative abilities, again like our Weapon X, aka Wolverine. Thanks to the experiments done on her, she had an electromagnetic device implanted in her body, which gave her the ability not to feel pain at all. Laura and Gabby developed a deep bond when Gabby moved in with her, and for the first time in her life, she felt she was home. With her clone sister, Gabby braved many adversaries and ultimately became a member of New Mutants. Gabby adopted the moniker Scout while she was on a mission and busy preventing the annihilation of every clone from the face of the universe. A typical Monday for Scout. Karma. Professor Xavier took Karma in upon the recommendation of Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic. Before Karma became a mutant superhero, she was Xuan Chaoman, a Vietnamese refugee running away from a war-torn country with her twin brother, Tran. It was a threat to Tran's life, which manifested her mutant powers, and she learned she had the ability of telepathy and could possess people's minds. During an encounter with Spider-Man, she takes control of his mind, and the Fantastic Four have to intervene. Reed Richards saw Xuan's full potential and recommended her to the Xavier Institute, where she could learn to use her mutant powers better. Thus, Karma became the first member of a new team of mutants. Often seen striking just the right balance between compassion and justice, Karma had the ability of telepathy and could possess her opponents' minds, leaving them with no memory of possession. Blob Herman. Robert Herman grew up with an abusive father who hated mutants and considered them a threat, and thus when Robert mutated, all hell broke loose. One day, his mother left him at Xavier's Institute when the word of Professor Xavier being a mutant got out. His mother left Robert in the hope he'd be better off living with the likes of him instead of being robbed of his childhood. At first, he hated being there, surrounded by mutants, because of the despise for the mutants ingrained in him by his father. Gradually, however, Robert began accepting his existence as a mutant and directed all his hatred towards humankind. This resentment led him to join a mutant extremist group called Omega Gang. He even left Xavier's Institute and joined the Hellfire briefly. Soon, however, he returns to his senses and rejoins Professor Xavier's New Mutants to do the right thing. He adopted the name Glob because, well, after he mutated, his skin completely transformed into a transparent pink jelly made of bioparaffin, also known as living wax. This made his skin completely see-through and left his skeleton exposed. Glob's body is entirely made of wax, which makes him highly flammable, and so he can light himself on fire and throw bits of himself at his rivals. And on top of being a human torch, he doesn't even feel a thing. How cool is that? Warlock. A resident of a planet called Kuvich, Warlock was an alien who belonged to the race of Technarchy, a shape-shifting cybernetic alien species. The race survived by draining their energy and feeding off their Mark's life force, or life glow, as they called it. However, Warlock wasn't too into the idea of sucking someone of their life energy and feeding on them. This made him different from his aggressive race as he happened to have compassion and could feel. Warlock discovered his mutation when he didn't want to kill his father, as it was a Kuvich ritual for the child to fight his father to death in order to prove his right to live. Fearing that he'd be killed at the hands of his father, he fled his planet and landed on Earth near Xavier's mansion, home to the New Mutants. Confused at his surroundings, a frightened Warlock attacks the New Mutants, mistaking them as a threat. However, with the help of Cypher, who could understand primitive and foreign languages, the mutants soon realized that all Warlock wanted was a refuge at the moment. Shortly after, Warlock is taken to Xavier's Institute, and he joins the New Mutants. Since Warlock was a Technarchy, he had the remarkable ability to shapeshift in any form he wanted at his own will. He could travel through space at an insane speed. Warlock can also repair his body and change into a weapon if the situation arises. Escapade. One of the recent additions to the whole roster of Marvel's heroes, Sheila Sexton, made her debut in the 2022 issue titled Marvel's Voices Pride. She started out as a vigilante and targeted corrupt organizations with the help of her mutant best friend, Morgan Red. Sheila discovered her mutant powers as a ninth grader when she accidentally swapped places with her principal. The powers allowed Sheila to swap places with anyone within her sight. Although her parents supported her when she let the cat out of the bag of her being a mutant, she didn't see the same support when she came out of the closet as gay. Thus, Sheila, Morgan, and Morgan's genetically engineered turtle began living together. One day, Sheila runs into Emma Frost and Destiny, who tell her that her swapping ability would one day be the end of her best friend. And so, Sheila was personally recruited by the mutant youth mentor, Emma Frost. Reluctantly, Sheila joins the New Mutants with the codename Escapade to better learn and control her body-swapping capabilities and change the course of her destiny. Warpath. James Proudstar really looked up to his elder brother John in every way a younger sibling does. So, when John was recruited by the X-Men and died on his mission, James swore vengeance on Charles Xavier. Soon, he manifested his mutant powers and joined the Hellions, a group of mutants recruited by Emma Frost, a long-standing rival of Charles Xavier. Here, James took up his brother's suit and name, Thunderbird. When the time came, Thunderbird couldn't go through his plans and bring himself to kill the professor. Professor Xavier offered him the chance to join the Xavier's Institute, which Thunderbird declined. He decided to stay back with the Hellions and follow his own path. As time passed, when Hellions and the New Mutants decided to bury the bad blood between them, Thunderbird adopted his own moniker, Warpath, and finally came out of his brother's shadow into a new light. Galura. Not much is known about Gabrielle Diwa, except that she was a Filipino-born mutant with wings that allowed her to take flight. She could also channel strong winds and stir up mini tornadoes. Somewhere along the way, she adopted the codename Galura and joined the New Mutants. Mondo. Mondo was a big, laid-back Samoan mutant who was captured by Emma Frost. He was rescued by Generation X and took them up on their offer to join them. However, it was later revealed that he was not the real Mondo, but a clone created by Black Tom Cassidy, a supervillain, to infiltrate Generation X. The real Mondo has been under Cassidy's tutelage and wasn't very sympathetic towards Generation X. However, Mondo ultimately joins the New Mutants but remains the same lovable mutant who just wants everybody to leave him alone on the beach to soak up the sun. Mondo is an omnimorph, which basically means he can shapeshift into any organic or inorganic thing that he touches or absorbs in himself. Cerebella. Not much about Martha's origin and background is known, except that she was a mutant runaway. John Sublime created U-Men, an organization of fanatical humans who wish to gain mutant abilities and go to any lengths to accomplish it. So, to achieve that, they began abducting mutants who were fresh out of the lot. Martha was kidnapped and her brain was removed from the body, but Sublime didn't stop there. He did the same with Cyclops and Emma Frost. However, both of them were able to free themselves and even rescue Martha from the malevolent Sublime's control. Once free, Martha used her mind manipulation mutant power to convince Sublime to take a hike on the street and thus fell to his death. Martha then enrolled in the Xavier Institute and was nicknamed No Girl because of her lack of physical body. She was later given a new body and codenamed Cerebella. Cerebella's mutant powers gave her the ability to create psycho chaff, which let her tweak and tinker with other brains. This tinkering allows her to control their body and physical movements and can literally make her opponents dance to her tunes. Manon and Maxime. Manon and Maxime are twin siblings born to mutant parents. Their powers manifested very early compared to others, hence they joined Xavier Institute as children. While Manon and Maxime are names we don't frequently come across when we talk about X-Men, this doesn't make them less menacing, regardless of being kiddos. Manon has the ability to alter and recall memories, while Maxime can emotionally manipulate emotions and make one feel exactly how he wants them to. While Maxime can emotionally control individuals, Manon could very easily infiltrate their minds and manipulate their memories and can even plant the most harrowing memories. The twins can be as lethal as one can be when they mean business. Former members list. Cannonball. Sam subconsciously manifested his mutant powers when he was trapped in a collapsing mine, but blasted his way out of it. This incident directed Donald Pierce's attention, a member of the Hellfire Club, towards Sam. The renegade Pierce wanted to use and exploit Sam's superhuman powers to attack Charles Xavier and put an end to his newly formed team of young mutants. Pierce manipulates Sam to join him and then unleashes an attack on Xavier and his new mutants. However, Sam soon returns to his senses and refuses to follow Pierce's orders to slay the mutants. Instead, he sides with Xavier to defeat Pierce. Xavier, realizing the good in Sam and that Pierce manipulated him, invited him to join the New Mutants. Shortly after, Sam joined the Young Mutants and adopted the name Cannonball. Cannonball can create thermochemical energy from his body, which allows him to propel forward in the air with great speed, just like his name. The thermochemical energy also acts as a shield for him during his flight, making him invulnerable to damage. This energy also enables Cannonball to manifest a blast field, which he can use to protect himself and even imprison his opponents. Blink. Clarice Ferguson was a young, timid mutant abducted by an evil race called Phalanx. Along with other mutants, she became the guinea pig for the Phalanx. However, soon she saved and even helped save the other mutants, but accidentally kills herself with her own powers. She's resurrected by Selene, a mutant psychic vampire who lies to her that the X-Men betrayed her, manipulating her to fight against them. Eventually, Clarice realizes her mistake and joins the X-Men. Blink has the ability to create teleportation portals in the blink of an eye, and there's a blink sound whenever she opens a portal, hence her codename. She can also teleport groups of people and any object she likes. You ask about the extent to which she can teleport? Well, let's say to the moon and back. Cable. Nathan Summers was an infant when he was introduced to the world of X-Men. His birth, far from normal, was orchestrated by the mad geneticist Mr. Sinister, who created Madeline Pryor, Cable's mother. Sinister, smelling a lifetime opportunity, had Madeline seduce the X-Men Scott Summer, aka Cyclops. Their union would make the ultimate mutant offspring, which he was going to use as a living weapon to kill his former master and present nemesis, Apocalypse. But before Sinister could execute his sinister plan, Apocalypse got the whiff and had the child abducted. He then infected the poor infant with a techno-organic virus and planned to use him as a host. He was then sent to the future to be raised. In the future, Nathan grows up as the warrior Cable, and becomes a rival of Apocalypse. Cable then returns to the present day to prevent Apocalypse from taking over the future, and joins the X-Men as their mentor and trains them for future threats. Born with telepathic and telekinetic abilities, Cable could also control other minds and physical movements. He could also possess someone's mind and make them forget a particular memory. X-Man. Another mutant created at the hands of evil Mr. Sinister was Nathaniel Grey, aka X-Man. Grey, chemically engineered by the DNA of Cyclops and Jean Grey, was created during the timeline when the mutant Apocalypse took over North America. Nate managed to escape Sinister's lair with the help of Cyclops, and eventually fell under the tutelage of another mutant, Forge. Nate saw Forge as a father figure who taught him to control and use his power for the greater good. After the death of Forge, Nate sent on taking down Apocalypse and traveled to his citadel, where he battled Apocalypse's son, Holocaust. In his attempt to break into Holocaust's armor, Nate stabbed him with a shard of the M'Kraan crystal, a huge pink gem that was once one of the most powerful relics in the Marvel Universe. This led them both, Nate and Holocaust, to be transported to an alternate reality, Earth 616. Professor Xavier was alerted of Nate's arrival and tried offering his friendship to him. But Nate, unaware of who to put his trust in, began navigating an unknown world, a world not yet won by Apocalypse, a world in which he had to make a place for himself. Described as omnipotent and truly godlike, X-Man has the ability of telepathy, telekinesis, and mind control, and can even create illusions. Shadowcat. 13-year-old brilliant Kitty Pryde began experiencing excruciatingly painful headaches when her powers started manifesting. Clueless of her being a mutant, she first heard about it when Charles Xavier from Xavier Institute and Emma Frost from the Hellfire Club tried pursuing her to join their respective schools. Kitty didn't like the whole vibe of the White Queen, Emma, if you know what I mean, and thus it was an easy decision for her. Xavier requested Kitty's parents to allow her to join the school for gifted youngsters. They refused and were reluctant to send their daughter to a world that loomed with its own dangers. Jean Grey, aka Phoenix, then used her telepathy to coerce Kitty's parents to give their blessings. Thus Kitty became the youngest mutant X-Men ever, and later named herself Shadowcat when she rejoined the X-Men. Balancing courage and practicality in just the right amount, Kitty Pryde possesses phasing power, which, if I put it simply, would mean she can pass through any solid matter. This ability also makes her intangible and immune to physical damage. Copycat. Born as a mutant with the ability to alter her physical appearance to look like someone else, Vanessa Carlyle was kicked out by her parents when they learned of this. Finding herself deep in prostitution in Boston, it was here where Vanessa met and fell in love with Wade Wilson, a mercenary who later goes on to become Deadpool. However, Wade soon finds out that he has cancer, and his days are numbered. To save Vanessa from heartbreak and see him die, he decides to leave her. After Wade leaves her, Vanessa becomes a mercenary too, adopting the moniker Copycat because of her ability to mimic people's appearance. She's hired by a gun dealer, Tolliver, to spy on Cable and bomb the headquarters of the mutant X-Force strike team. Vanessa morphs into Domino, a close associate of Cable, and joins the team. Morphed as Domino, Vanessa soon begins liking her life among the mutants and becomes the second in command. She begins considering the X-Force as her friend and can't go through her plan of assassinating Cable. Tolliver then sends the masked mercenary Deadpool to finish what Vanessa started, but this time, she helps the X-Force defeat Tolliver. Unlike Mystique's shape-shifting ability, Copycat can even copy an individual's genetic makeup and mimic a person's attributes and personality by just being near them. Her mutant ability also allows her to grow in size and slow her aging, making her one of the most dreaded shapeshifters alive in the X-Men world. Fire Fist. An orphaned Rusty was kept in the care of his uncle, who enlisted him in the Navy merely at the age of 16. With a hardened life at sea and an unknown surrounding, Rusty found himself in a bar with his naval drinking buddies and forced to make out with a prostitute named Emma in some shady part of the town. With no prior experience, the stress of the situation got Rusty heated up and his mutant powers manifested. He abruptly burst into flames, which left Emma disfigured and burnt. A petrified Rusty was arrested by the naval authorities and thrown into jail. The superior officer, an anti-mutant, swore vengeance on Rusty and all the mutants. The officer, in an attempt to exact his revenge, tried to shoot Rusty. Scared to death for his life, Rusty ignited and fled. Afraid that Rusty might pose a threat to him and report on the attempted execution, the superior officer hired X-Factor, who allegedly hunted mutants but were the X-Men in disguise who were secretly sheltering young mutants. They were tasked to track Rusty down and ultimately saved him. Rusty joined the X-Men with the name Fire Fist and learned how to control and use his fiery form better. With pyrokinesis as his mutant ability, Rusty has the power to control, manipulate, and start fire. He can also change into a humanoid torch and burst flames from his body. No big deal for our trusty Rusty.
My name's Rusty, but I go by Shatterstar.
That's good.
Shatterstar. Gavidra 7. better known as Shatterstar, was raised on the distant planet called Mojo World, ruled by the tyrant Mojo. There, he was created to be a slave, believed to be brought to life with genetic engineering, with no parents and just a gestation chamber. Shatterstar, a warrior on Mojo World, wasn't very optimistic about the future ahead of him. His superhuman physique and healing ability made Shatterstar a worthy warrior. Although a slave, Shatterstar had a strong sense of honor and code, and one day he decided to stop being a slave and do something about it. Eventually, he joined and made his own place in Cable's original X-Force, where he proved to be a loyal and honorable soldier. With acute senses, superhuman speed, agility, and fine reflexes, Shatterstar can also teleport people and objects through space. Feral. Maria came from a pretty average family in New York City where she lived with her parents and siblings. But soon her life changed for the worse when her father abandoned them and was found dead from a drug overdose. It was around the same time Maria's mutant powers began manifesting. Initially, it was all internal, with Maria feeling her senses heightened. Then Maria started to change physically, and a feral mutation began kicking in. Maria felt bone-crushing rage and had animalistic instincts, with an attack first, question later attitude. Maria was ill-equipped to control or even manage her changing personality, making her life harder at home. Unfortunately, the day came when she ended up killing her mother in a fit of anger. Maria had heard of an underground society of mutants discarded by the society that lived in the sewer called Morlocks. She seeks refuge with them, and it's here that her mutation is finally finished and she takes up the name Feral for herself. However, it wasn't long after she had to leave Morlocks because of its leader, Mask's malicious ways. Escaping from the sewers, Feral finds her way to the X-Mansion, the home of the new mutants, and joins them. Feral's mutant powers endowed her with sharp senses, agility, and rapid healing ability. She possessed retractable claws much like Wolverine, which could cut through anything and everything. Richter. Richter was the son of an arms dealer who witnessed his father's murder, a sight that haunted him for many years. Later, Richter was abducted by a criminal organization for his mutant ability to produce seismic waves. The head of the criminal organization wanted to use Richter's ability to make an earthquake and destroy the whole city of San Francisco. However, Richter was rescued by the X-Factor and was provided shelter. Strong Guy. Guido Caracella's powers soon manifested when Guido was struck by a bus, and he absorbed its kinetic energy. This led his body to swell up and disproportionate. Soon after, his parents died in a freak accident when space debris fell on them. He settled out of court and received a large sum of money. But with Guido's lifestyle, it soon depleted. After losing his fortune, Guido took on the role of a fighter in the arena games. Here, he fought other grotesque and strange-looking mutants and aliens. This was where he first met the new mutants and later took on the name Strong Guy. Strong Guy's mutant powers allow him to absorb the kinetic energy of objects he comes in contact with. However, he can't store more than 90 seconds of energy in his body, or else the energy will distort it or even kill him. Strong Guy also possesses superhuman strength because he absorbs kinetic energy and is so superhumanly durable that even a bullet can't make this superhero flinch. Prodigy. David Orline was a brilliant and intelligent boy who discovered he could know what other people around him knew. That's when he realized he was a mutant, but he kept his powers secret. However, he was outed by the campus anti-mutant group Purity and realized the cat was out of the bag. He could no longer be a mutant in secrecy. So, Danny offered him a place in Xavier's school. David accepted it and was given the codename Prodigy. Prodigy's mutant abilities allow him to absorb the skills and knowledge of anyone nearby, telepathically. He can mimic the physical abilities and mental skills of anyone nearby, making it easier for him to understand his teammates. Prodigy can also predict physical attacks coming his way, which saves him just in the nick of time. Gossamer. Gossamer belonged to an ancient race of aliens from an unnamed planet. Gossamer and her family were taken into captivity by a crime lord, Spider. Gossamer was kept on a leash like a pet and was referred to as it instead of she, thus robbing her of her identity, and was treated as mere property. Gossamer learned that Spider was planning to reclaim Lila Cheney, a singer on Earth who can transport over galaxies. So, Gossamer gave Spider the slip and made the journey to Earth to seek new mutants to help save her family and Lila from Spider's evil clutches. Gossamer unconsciously releases psionic signals, which, even without intent, can cause the male to desire her and create conflict among them. Bird Brain. Bird Boy, also known as Bird Brain, was created by a mad geneticist, Animator, on a remote island in North America. The rogue scientist was hell-bent on creating the perfect animal-man cross hybrids, which he named Animates. Birdbrain was one such Animates who sought to escape the paradise created by Animator. Although he managed to do so, he was captured and put in a freak show in New York City, where Cannonball rescued him. Not long after, Wolfsbane learned about Birdbrain and wanted to bring him to Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters to understand Birdbrain better and help him. At the same time, Emma Frost's Hellions also learns about Birdbrain and wants to capture him. The New Mutants fought the Hellions and successfully brought Birdbrain to their school. Birdbrain has super strength, stamina, fast reflexes, and fantastic eyesight. He can also take flight and has claws on his hands and feet. Skids, a runaway kid. Sally manifested her mutant powers when her father was severely abusing her mother. She created a force field around her, which protected her from her father. Although Sally managed to scare her father off, she failed to save her mother, who succumbed right in front of her. Nowhere to go, Sally ends up living with the Morlocks in the sewer. There, she named herself Skids. Morlocks took on inhuman appearances at the hands of their leader, Mask. But Skids, adamant about keeping her normal appearance, was treated as an outcast. Sally met Rusty, who was attacked by angry bystanders and ultimately saved by the X-Factor. Skids joined them to learn to control better and use her protective force field, which protects her from attacks and makes it impossible for her rivals to inflict damage on her. Former leaders. Professor X. The man behind the whole mutant-saving humankind stint is Professor Charles Xavier, aka Professor X, the mastermind behind the X-Men. He's a powerful telepath on a mission to prove that harmony between mutants and humans is not implausible. Professor Xavier envisioned a world where mutants and humans coexist harmoniously and benefit from each other's strengths. An advocate for mutant rights, our fantastic Professor X ran a school that helped them learn how to control their powers, fit into society, and not feel like rejects. Professor Xavier soon came to be known as Professor X by his students. Professor X is a world-class telepath who can read minds without sweat. He can telepathically communicate with anyone, even galaxies beyond. Professor X can manipulate, erase, and create memories and control people's actions with his mutant powers. Although he lost both legs in a conflict, his mind compensates for it and can do anything with it, from creating illusions to controlling others. Magneto. Max Eisenhardt had a tumultuous life and was born in a world of turmoil during World War II. He witnessed the horrors of the war and the destruction humans can inflict on other humans. Max considered mutants superior beings to humans. What started as fighting for mutants' rights soon turned into something sinister. Max adopted the moniker Magneto and went out on an all-out war against humanity to assert the dominance of mutants. In his quest to give mutants their rightful place on Earth, Max lets go of his humanity when he's on the verge of killing a mere girl, Kitty Pryde. Soon, Max realizes how far gone he is on this bleak road and hence aligns with the X-Men. Finally walking the line between good and evil, Max joins the X-Men and has fought missions around the world. Dubbed the Master of Magnetism, Magneto has the ability to create and control magnetic fields. He can manipulate all forms of magnetism and can even reshape even the most indestructible metal, say Wolverine's adamantium claws. Storm. Aurora Monroe was a young orphan whose home was wiped out by a plane crash and thus had a rough start as a sneak thief on the main streets of Cairo. But her life took a steep turn when she encountered Professor Xavier, aka Professor X. She took on the name Storm and joined the X-Men crew, where she became a real weather wizard. Since her joining the crew, Storm rose through the ranks. She also leads the X-Men's team after Professor X goes to space. She faced challenges head-on, whether it was the Mutant Massacre or Inferno. She was once the Queen of Wakanda when she married Black Panther. However, Storm is back in action with the X-Men after the events of Doom War. With her superpower, Storm can control all types of weather, tweak the temperature, conjure lightning shows, and even mess with the air in one's lungs. Also, she can bend light using moisture in the air and play with fog. Her power could easily wreck the world, and she's a force of nature in every sense. Well, that was all in this one. Let me know who some of your favorites are in this vast roster of mutants. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.